So I want to first say thanks for the Tap Raptors who made it here today. Love you guys. So I'm the CEO of TapInfluence. I've actually been CEO for 14 months, so it is going well. So thank you very much, and you're welcome. So what I wanted to talk about is get tough, get creative in chaos. But I thought I would bring it down and reduce it to its core. So I started my career in Silicon Valley. I was 22, and I was between my first and second year in graduate school. And I went from undergrad, where I had 3 degrees: chemistry, religion, and marketing. And people said, you will never get into graduate school. I got into graduate school, and I wanted to work in tech, right? I wanted to be part of that community. And so people said, you will never get a job in tech. I got a job in tech. And I worked for a tiny little company called BEA Systems. And listen to this shit. It was named after the founders, Bill, Ed, and Alfred. That's how creative it was, okay? And we took that little company and we went public, and we became one of Oracle's largest acquisitions for about $8 billion. And that was, whistle at, Uncle Sam, because I don't know where all that money went, but I had a shoe collection and a tax bill. That's all I remember from that period in my life. But it was all about building competencies and building skills. And the way I like to think about it is I was a competitive ballroom dancer. And one of the things that you do as a ballroom dancer is you do this. And you do that probably 5,000 times. You do this about 5,000 times, so that in your sleep and when you're 40, you can do that with your eyes closed. And so what BEA taught me was the importance of a foundation of skills and of learning from other people, and of building core capabilities that you don't get when you're a 2-person startup, or that you have to learn the hard way. So that was one thing that I learned at BEA. And so 2002 comes. The economy is shite. And I'm like, this is a great time to start a startup. And so I left BEA and started a company called the Phelon Group, which is a consulting company at the time. And so we would take data and we would essentially help companies figure out, how do you get more better profitable customers? We were probably 15 years too early. But we were a services company. I started it on my own. Literally, my dog Malcolm was a name on the letterhead. It was that kind of thing. And that business, regardless of how hard I worked, never grew above $2 million in annual revenue, ever. Like I worked 24 hours, worked. Never got above that. And so I learned some lessons, which I'll talk about in a second. But in 2004, we converted that business from a services business to a software company, and we grew immediately to about $15-20 million run rate, and then sold it in 2008, 2009. From there, this was my baby. So I started in 2009 a company that I thought was going to compete with LinkedIn, but it was going to be inside of corporations. It was going to help corporations manage the careers of their best employees. We were probably 25 years ahead of its time. I learned how to raise money. I raised $5 million in $20,000 increments, so you can imagine the brain damage on that one. That's right. But it was a great experience, and I invested my husband and our entire life savings. I put into that company. Blood, sweat, tears, grit, sinew, ligaments, and bone into that thing, and it was not successful. But you know what? I gave it 180%, and when I shut it down, people were like, good on you. Like, you fucking did it, right? Oh, can we say fuck at this? Okay, all right. Right, and so I learned a lot about that, I'll talk about in a second, and then I went on to become the chief revenue officer of a company called Jazz, or at the time it was called The Resumator. We blew it out. I hired some amazing people. We grew that company. We raised $20 million in venture capital. Amazing win. And then I decided, I forgot, I'm a CEO, not a CRO. And so I was in the process of signing an offer letter for a company in the Bay Area, and I met this tiny little company called TapInfluence that was based in Boulder. Now, two things about Boulder. The weather makes absolutely no sense. That's one, so I will never have on the right jacket. I will never have on the right jacket. But the second thing is, it's not Silicon Valley, which is where I grew up. And for a few of the brown people in here, it's just us. Like, this is it. This is it. And we gotta walk around town like on a time cycle so that people don't think that we're all part of the same group. But lastly, I left a place where several $billion gets invested every year into startups to a place where tens of millions of dollars gets invested. And so every woman I left said, you can't be successful there. And so I want to talk about how to think differently about your success and how to be creative when people tell you can't do something. So I want to give you guys a framework for 3 types of relationships. Mentors, think me. I'm going to tell you about my experiences. I'm going to tell you how I did things. I'm going to show you how I did something, and you're going to observe patterns from that. Champion, it's all about you. I'm going to help your career. I'm going to pump you up. I'm going to be an advocate and a champion for you. A partner, we. I'm going to augment your strengths and your Enneagrams for the folks in the room. I'm going to make you better based on what I bring to the table. So I was lucky. You guys have all heard of Bill Campbell. So he was VP of Marketing for Apple Computers. He's on the board of Google and Apple and all these amazing companies. And then he went on to be CEO of a tiny little startup called Intuit. And so I chased him down. And I remember the day I went to his office, I'm outside waiting for him, and Sheryl Sandberg walks out, and I was like, wow, okay, this is really happening. And I sought this person out to be my mentor. And so what he helped me understand about myself by telling me his story was that in startups and in the whole tech verse, it is about mavericks. It is all about mavericks. It's all about disrupting ideas and people who've come before you, and that being part of the identity of a startup, and that regardless of what you think you can't do, you can do. When I said, Bill, should I go to Boulder? He's like, wear sunscreen and go crush it. Barbara, I met her in 1997. I was a 21-year-old first-year MBA school graduate, getting an MBA in finance, and she was working for a company called NCR, and she got recruited to go work at BEA, and she said, you know what, why don't you come up and work for me? What I didn't realize is she was my champion. She helped me get a job. She helped me negotiate my package. She helped me figure out my tax situation from all the people who've done the tech startup thing. And she was an amazing person, but she was all about me. So amazing experience. And then I meet this young man, Stephen Nix. So I started that company, and then I meet him, and he's the exact opposite of me. Like I can't imagine, he's the exact opposite. The things I'm not good at, he's amazing at. The things that I'm great at, he's not so good at. And so we built a company that literally went from 2 people doing $2 million in revenue to 5 people doing 10, and to 20 people doing $15 or $20 million. Like, the economics in that business, because of our partnership, were outrageous. And so what I learned from these 3 people is the same thing. It's important to be a maverick. It's important to build your own creative style of leading and building organizations, but that you can't do it alone. You need someone who's going to tell you how they've done something. You need someone who's going to not mentor you, but actually get in the weeds and validate. And when someone goes, is this person a dummy? No, they're not. You need someone who's actually going to get in there and actually carry the torch for your career objectives for you and with you. And then lastly, you need a partner. And as you build bigger organizations, as you build bigger organizations, you need many of those 3 people inside of your company. So I joined TapInfluence about 12 months ago. Slow growth company, amazing vision, and not enough capital to really take it to the next level. So I started working with our founders. I was the mentor. How do we do this, guys? What do you think is the right path? And then I go and I re-recruit our board of directors. So then that's about, now they're my champions. We changed the business model. I didn't do that on my own. It was all about recruiting the employees who were at TapInfluence at the time and getting them to drive that conversion. And then we changed the culture. And I want to just give Rachel Donaldson a little bit of props here. So Rachel and Sarah, who also came from Silicon Valley to help me do this, it was hard because we were growing 300%, changing the business model, raising money, re-recruiting, and in a dynamic market that we didn't truly understand yet. So that happens, and then we drive 300% year-over-year revenue growth. Unbelievable, difficult, incredible. And then we go out and we raise $14 million in Series B capital earlier this year. But everything from business model change forward was about we. It was about my employees making the sacrifices. It was about my employees actually managing and running the business. It was about the team at TapInfluence owning the vision and owning the belief that we're going to partner with each other and with our CEO to make her better, to make the company better, and change the market. So yes, in the beginning it was about me, bringing my Silicon Valley skills and my experience building companies and selling companies. Then it was about me pumping up the business and being the champion of that business and the board as well. And then it was about we and about them and about everyone else and empowering. So the net is people laud entrepreneurs. People laud the guy who jumps off and pushes the mastodon over the cliff. Those are the me's. But actually what builds great and sustainable companies, it's the we. And so the sooner you can figure out what it is that you fucking rock at, and that you can do a great job of being vulnerable and authentic to people who are great at other stuff, the faster the growth, the faster and the more consistent the performance, and the better the company. Thank you.